Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the South Windsor Town Council regular meeting of Monday, March 6th at 7 p.m. Could I have a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councillor Evans,
Here.
Councillor Kabaski,
Here.
Councillor Lopez, Councillor Paterna,
Here.
Mayor Pendleton,
Present.
Deputy Mayor King,
Here.
Councillor Kozakowski,
Here.
Councillor Gamble,
Here.
Councillor Leidecker.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by saying this is Women's History Month all over the nation, and I'd like to say that I just left an event in Hartford for some spectacular women that were being honored in the Hispanic community in Hartford, and I was a guest speaker there. And there was one woman who came up to me afterwards who was literally crying and thanked me for what I said. And for all the women that can hear us out there, we support you. And you can follow your dreams. Don't listen to your inner voice. Do whatever your heart desires and live true to yourself. And that's basically what I said down there. Don't let anyone stop you. So tonight for Women's History Month, I would like to recognize, we have recognized in the past women from our nation that have done pretty spectacular things. But this year and this month, I'd like to recognize some local folks that we have right here in South Windsor. I'd like to start out with Louise Evans. Louise Evans was the first woman that was elected to Planning and Zoning, and she served for over 40 years on that commission. Doris Bergdorf, who created our town seal that we can see right over there on the wall. Betty Warren served on the South Windsor Agricultural Commission in the Inland Wetlands Agency and Conservation in the Open Space Task Force. And she was also a farmer in our community. Sandra Bender, who was our first female mayor of the town of South Windsor in 1973. Sally Edlund, who is a volunteer at Wood Memorial Library and Museum, and she taught thousands of third graders about our cemetery down on Main Street. After our town historian, Barney Daly, passed away, Sally took over for him, and she knew that cemetery like the back of her hand. And we do have a video here in our archives with the town of Sally discussing the cemetery where some of our forefathers, founding fathers, were buried. Nancy Cafin was also a mayor of South Windsor after Sandra Bender. Lori Trahan was a lifelong a resident of South Windsor, and she was also our town clerk. Priscilla Snow, who was the clerk of the council, she also served on planning and zoning in the Chamber of Commerce, and she's the CEO of Post Road Stages. Mrs. Prout, I learned about this today. Mrs. Prout was a wife of a farmer back during the war, way back in the days. In 1801, Mrs. Prout was the first person to roll an American cigar. South Windsor was based on tobacco and tobacco growth here, but she was the first woman to actually take the broadleaf tobacco and create a cigar for the outer wrapping of the cigar, the inner wrapping of the cigar. And on the Wood Memorial Library website, you can read up on what she did, but she took it on her wagon and sold it for a nickel. And she went around making money for her family. She also planted 21 acres of tobacco by herself and farmed that, and she did that with 3 children. Debbie Fine, who served on the town council for over 10 years. She was a leader in Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and she was a huge Red Sox fan. Debbie passed away while she was sitting on the town council. Jean Klein, I'd also like to recognize because she is the one who created the Native American program that many of our third graders have gone through on their field trip down Main Street. And Jean Klein was the creator of our Native American program that has touched many, many lives. And thanks to the volunteers, the many volunteers and docents down at Wood Library, that program continues today. I'd like to thank Dr. Kate Carter, who's sitting in the room with us this evening. She's our first female superintendent of South Windsor School System, and she's been there since 2010. She was the founding principal of 2 schools, I probably can't pronounce this right, the NIAG Elementary School in Glastonbury and the Great Path Academy. Thank you, Dr. Carter, for all your educational achievements. I'd also like to recognize Ria Saxena. I need my glasses on for this one, sorry. She's a student at South Windsor High School. She's an author and a poet. She has participated in the Model UN conferences, including those hosted by Harvard, Yale, and World Affairs Council of Connecticut, for which she served in the 2021 conference president. Ria works to provide diversity and is conducting a research project in partnership with Wood Memorial Library. And now this name, Mahika Joshi, she is a 9th grader at South Windsor High School. She is a lead on the program that created the South Windsor Veterans Banners that you see around town that our Patriotic Commission puts up. Which, by the way, those banners are sponsored, and if anyone is interested in sponsoring a banner, you can go to the town site and look up Patriotic Commission and sponsor a banner. In 2022, she was the Connecticut recipient of the Billy Michael Student Leadership Award, giving to one student each state that demonstrates American spirit in his or her community. I'd also like to say a special thank you to our town staff, to our present council members, and to all the many volunteers on our boards and commissions that keep South Windsor innovative, creative, and still running with plenty of programs. And finally, with my most sincere gratitude, I'd like to say thank you to our first responders, from our dispatchers, our police officers, our fire department, our EMS on the ambulance, and last but not least, to all our female veterans of our community. I thank you and acknowledge all you women out there and support you wholeheartedly all the way. And if you ever need encouragement, give me a call. I'll be right there for you. Thank you, everyone, for all your contribution to South Windsor. I'm not on, no, wait. I also like to announce that Holly is on the 8th of March. The Hartford St. Patrick's Day is on the 11th. The first day of spring is on the 20th, and Ramadan begins at sundown on the 22nd. And that's all I have to say this evening. And we'll move on. Okay, Councilor Gamble, adoption of the agenda, please.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor King.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to turn our attention to agenda item number 13, A through D. If we can move those items up to after agenda item 6, after communications and reports from the town manager. Items 13, A, B, C, and D, if we can move them up to after number 6.
Is there any discussion? Is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6, communications and reports from the town manager, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of our collections update, we're right on target for reaching our goal of 99%. Currently this year, we are at 98.14%. Whereas last year at the same exact time, overall we were at 97.87. So big congratulations to the Collectors Department for their hard work in doing that. Also, I'm pleased to inform you that to date, town staff are reporting a reduced number of truck traffic on Rye Street. I'm very appreciative of the efforts of East Windsor to enforce their permit and the staff efforts that have been made at looking into the solutions that will minimize the impact on our residents. The town will continue to monitor this situation. Also, in terms of Hartford Truck, which is a local company within the community, I wanted to make the council aware that Hartford Truck has brought forward an expansion plan for tax abatement. For those of you who follow planning and zoning, you've seen the proposed expansion to their current building, and the addition of another building has been approved. They completed their abatement application, and it has gone through an internal staff review and is currently with the Economic Development Commission for review and recommendation. I would expect this will be on the agenda as an agenda item for all of you to consider at the end of March, early April at the soonest. Lastly, we've been hard at work on our budget for the town. The Finance Department have been working very hard on getting the budget together. We're on track for our March 20th budget presentation. I wanted to specifically thank Senator Anwar and Representative Delnicki in their help to figure out what the state revenues are. We're still in the process of putting those final numbers together to get ourselves a general idea of where we're going to be. And that's all I have to report tonight. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Does anyone have any questions or comments or concerns for Mr. Maniscalco? Counselor Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you say that we're on target for 99% tax collection. What is the 1%? What does that represent? Like 99% is great, but how much money are we talking about with not getting the full 100? Is that like-
Well, we never collect the full 100%. Like, if you find a municipality that collects on full 100% in taxes, that's.
I mean, is it like $500,000 that we're leaving on the
I think
table?
it's probably more upwards of like $1 million plus. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. Certainly is a significant.
And we just sort of write that off every year saying we can't
Well,
get it?
so what happens with the uncollected amount, the department continues to try to collect it over the year. It'll accrue interest over that period of time at 18%, which is dictated by statute. And then at a certain point, if it can't be collected, I think it's probably around 5 to 10 years, we'll bring to the council a list of accounts that we ask to be put on the suspense list. So what happens when we put it on the suspense list is we put them on a list that basically we're not going to continue to actively pursue collection, but it'll just kind of sit there until either the property changes hands or something happens, in which case we can then collect that money at that point.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions from any councilors? Not seeing any. We'll move on. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to 13A. Which is Charles Margolis, the Poet Laureate Citation and Proclamation. Mr. Margolis?
This was unexpected.
Yeah. You're the man of the honor, right here, the man of the honor, the man of the hour. Thank you, sir, for all that you've done for South Windsor as the Poet Laureate. Truly appreciate you. Back in the day when you were appointed Poet Laureate, do you remember what year that was?
No, I don't, but it was about 14 years ago, I think.
I'm thinking 2009, maybe?
sounds right.
Something like that? And since then, you have promoted poetry in South Windsor. You've also honored your brother, I understand, with poetry. And poetry has never been my thing, but thank you for doing it.
It will be now.
It will be now. Okay, I'll write a beautiful poem just for the town. I don't know if you received a citation, sir, when you were first appointed as Poet Laureate, but you're getting one tonight, okay? Then you're going to get a proclamation. I just wanted to cover the basis for you. So the Town of South Windsor citation. Whereas the municipality of South Windsor, Connecticut is only as great as those persons who give exemplary service to their communities, whether through participation in voluntary programs or unique personal achievements. And whereas Charles Margolis is a retired art teacher and was appointed November 16th, 2009. Hey, we're pretty good, right? Poet Laureate of South Windsor. Charles is the author of the poetry book, Class Dismissed, A Teacher Says Goodbye. And he coordinated South Windsor's Voices, an anthology of poetry featuring poems of South Windsor residents. Charles has also planned and sponsored many poetry readings in South Windsor, Connecticut. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Pendleton, Mayor of the Town of South Windsor, acting on behalf of the Town Council and the residents of South Windsor, do hereby acknowledge and recognize Charles Margolis as our Poet Laureate in 2009. Thank you, sir, for that. Appreciate you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we step back in time a little bit to 2009. That's okay.
Okay with me.
That's okay with me, too. Now you're going to get a proclamation for the present, okay? So from the Town of South Windsor, the proclamation, whereas Charles Margolis is a retired art teacher and a Poet Laureate of South Windsor, and he was first appointed as Poet Laureate on November 16th, 2009, and whereas the purpose of the Poet Laureate is to promote and sponsor events featuring poets and authors of the community, and to encourage the love of poetry for everyone. The Poet Laureate also represents the cultured aspect of the town at public functions when requested. And whereas during his time as Poet Laureate, Charles coordinated South Windsor Voices, an anthology of poetry featuring the poems of South Windsor residents. After the pandemic, he planned a service. he planned a series of outdoor summer readings called Coming Out of COVID, a celebration of poetry and community. Charles has planned and sponsored many poetry readings throughout the years alongside other poet laureates from surrounding communities. And whereas Charles was a co-founder of the Connecticut Coalition of Poet Laureates, Charles wrote the poetry book, Class Dismissed, A Teacher Says Goodbye. His most recent book, P.S. Poems and Short Stories, was written as a tribute to his brother David. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Pendleton, Mayor on behalf of the town of South Windsor, acting on behalf of the town council and the residents of South Windsor, hereby extend our thanks and appreciation for all the time and commitment Charles has dedicated to South Windsor as Poet Laureate. Thank you, sir. We absolutely appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kindness and your support, council members. When I started in 2009, I had the opportunity to serve under 5 mayors. There were about 6 poet laureates. And with the help of Dr. Anwar, we began a process, a coalition. There are now 50 plus and growing every day. It's a wonderful movement for wonderful things. I just want to say that you have, as I turn it over to Steve and to Rhea, it will continue to grow and get better, and I'm absolutely thrilled at the possibilities. I do not like to use the word talent much because it sort of belies the fact that underneath talent is a great deal of work. But these 2 individuals have remarkable gifts and wonderful records of having produced. They will carry poetry in this community even further, and each of them has contributed to our book, Coming Out of COVID. So again, I want to say with greatest sincerity, thank you for your support, your participation, members of the council, mayors, and most of all, the community. I am deeply honored, and these will have an honored place on my wall. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to go on to item 13B, please. Councilor Paterna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My honor tonight to be part of this ceremony, and a person much wiser than me once described poetry this way. Poetry is like cleaning the car windshield so that you can see the world more clearly. I think that fits appropriately what we think about when we go to a poetry reading. So we're going to amend the resolution tonight as far as the appointments of poet laureates for South Windsor. So if I may, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby establishes the honorary position of poet laureate for the town of South Windsor, term of said appointment to be 2 years, coinciding as closely as possible with the terms of the municipal elections. Be it further resolved that the charge to said poet laureate shall be to promote and sponsor events featuring area poets and authors, encourage the love of poetry among all ages, and represent the cultural aspects of the town at public functions when so requested by the South Windsor Town Council, the mayor, or the town manager.
Madam Mayor, may I just inquire
Please.
if there is a different agenda? Mine includes in that resolution a student poet laureate as well?
We have a printed copy on our desks. And Amanda, which one are we supposed to be reading? Because the one on our agenda mentions the student poet laureate, but the one on our desk does not.
Councilor Paterna just read the original resolution.
Got it?
There is a handout that has the original and the amended version I put on your seats before the meeting. So they're both accessible to you.
But the one at the bottom still doesn't have student in it.
Yeah, it does. I'm sorry.
It does.
Oh, I see it. So you should have been reading the bottom one.
Bottom half.
The bottom one, not the original one.
I'll repeat
No,
that.
the white one.
I'll repeat that paragraph on the white section.
The white one with the amended, resolution including amendments down at the bottom. That's what's being changed.
So the change is appointment of positions of poet laureate and student poet laureate for the 2 years.
Could you please just read that first sentence for us on the
Be
amended?
resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby establishes the positions of poet laureate and student poet laureate for the town of South Windsor, the term of said appointments to be 2 years. So that's the amended sentence.
And that's what we're voting on right now, is to amend the original to include student poet laureate. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I have a comment. There was more amendments in the second paragraph.
Okay, so read the whole thing over again? You want to withdraw your second?
Do we,
Well, I believe what's on our actual agenda is the amendment. Because on my agenda, I have in both paragraphs the student poet laureate information.
okay, so I seconded the motion, and then, trying to get ahead of myself, I took my pencil out and amended it a little bit more, and that's what's on the white paper in front of you.
Right.
So Councilor Paterno read
The edits.
the motion on the agenda, and it was seconded, and now somebody can propose a amendment and read the new language.
So there were some edits that were done offered by Councilor Kozakowski.
Oh,
Correct. Correct.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will move for the friendly amendment to be made.
Yes.
That we read the resolution, including the amendments, that is in front of us on the white piece of paper on our desk. So if it can be read in full.
Yeah.
And that's what we vote on.
So Counselor Paterno, if we could have Counselor Paterno read the amended.
Exactly.
Please read the bottom two on the white.
You know, I know Steve Strait and Rhea Saxena very well. I think they're forcing me to practice at the next poetry reading how I'll be speaking in public, so I'll do this again. Resolution including amendments. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby establishes the positions of poet laureate and student poet laureate for the town of South Windsor. The term of said appointments to be 2 years, coinciding as closely as possible with the terms of the municipal elections. And be it further resolved that the responsibility of the poet laureates are to promote and sponsor events featuring local poets and authors, encourage the love of poetry among all ages, and represent the cultural aspects of the town at public functions when so requested by the South Windsor Town Council or the town manager.
Is there a
Second.
Okay.
You made the motion.
Is there any discussion?
Right.
Counselor Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you just briefly describe what the pencil edits were to?
Thank you.
I'm not seeing what the.
I know, I'm
I can do
surprised
that
that
very
we see
quickly.
this here without any name on this and not knowing where this came from.
Okay, so what the changes are subtle, but I think they work. First, in the first, be it resolved, it removes the word honorary from honorary positions, because honorary position implies one of two things. One, that there's no responsibility for that position, and that's very untrue for this. And then the second thing that it implies that it's honorary based on no real background or expertise in the area, just based on life experiences. And I don't think that's the case in this case either, where we want somebody that is an expert in the field of poetry and the arts.
Yeah.
So that's why honorary was removed. And then in the second, be it further resolved, it says that the quote-unquote charge of said poet laureate and so forth, I don't know, that just sounds funny to me. I think, it's better suited to speak to the responsibilities of the poet laureate. So that's why the change would be that the responsibility of the poet laureates, plural, because the proposal is for 2 poet laureates, to promote, and so forth and so forth. And then one other change where it says one of the responsibility or charges was to sponsor events featuring area poets and authors. The change just has changing the word area to local think that just flows a little better and makes a little bit more sense. So those are the high points and the low points.
Is there any discussion on the changes on the amended resolution? No discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Thank you for your suggested changes. They made sense, but I just wasn't sure how that was happening, what happened there. Didn't know where this came from. So now we're going to move on to 13C. I would like to appoint Mr. Steve Street. And Mr. Steve Street, we're going to meet right over there. Good evening, sir. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Haven't met you before. Thank you for offering to be the Poet Laureate for the town of South Windsor. We appreciate you. A little bit of background about you, I guess, is some pretty interesting stuff, right? Could you give us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I taught at Manchester Community College for 30 years, 10 years before that. I ran the poetry program there, organized poetry readings featuring especially people who were about to become famous, and we couldn't afford them. So we have had about 5 poet laureates of the United States before they became poet laureates, one a week before she became poet laureate. So lots of organizing. My goal has been to get poetry wherever I can, including town council meetings, which I will sneak in tonight.
You know Charlie?
I know Charlie well. Charlie did a
They're
phenomenal
ganging up
job.
on us now. I can't do this.
I thought the position was going to be 14 years. I guess I was mistaken. But it's my pleasure and honor to carry on in Charlie's tradition.
Oh, thank you so much for that, sir. And I'd like to present you with a citation this evening, if you'll indulge me here. South Windsor citation, whereas the municipality of South Windsor, Connecticut is only as great as those persons who give exemplary service to the communities, whether through participation in voluntary programs or unique personal achievements. And whereas Steve Straight was a professor of English and director of the poetry program at Manchester Community College for 30 years. God bless you. Before that, he taught writing and literature at the University of Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut State University, Quinebaug Valley Community College, and the University of Hartford. For many years, he directed the Connecticut Poetry Circuit, which coordinates readings of professional and student poets for all the Connecticut colleges. Steve has proven his passion for literature through his years of teaching. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Pendleton, Mayor of the Town of South Windsor, acting on behalf of the Town Council and the residents of South Windsor, do hereby acknowledge and recognize Steve Straight as South Windsor's Poet Laureate. Thank you, sir. Totally appreciate you for doing that. Thank you. There you go. And I know you're going to bless us this evening.
Yes. As I say, I like to sneak poetry in wherever I can. Town council meeting sounds right. And of course, my first goal as poet laureate is going to be to win over Mayor Liz to poetry. So here's a try. It's a short little poem. It's called Vincent. In the first line, you'll find out why it's called Vincent. Vincent. The one-eared chipmunk I had fed so many times last year from my hand. So close I could study the tumid wound where his left ear had been. The sucking fly stuck to his striped back. The tiny toenails manicured by rocks did not return this year. And I imagined all the calamities that chipmunk flesh is heir to. The silent dive of the red-shouldered hawk, the neighbor's wily calico, the fox whose baby squeal electrifies the night, and even plain old age, which is never far off for a chipmunk. And I blamed myself for taming him to the point he trusted this indentation in the big stone atop the wall, that despite his palpitating heart, he might have let down his fidgety guard because of our daily routine. And so now, when he does appear, 3 weeks late, ear hole now healed, and clambers over the rocks and into my hand, all 4 feet, even pausing to eat one of the black seeds as I hold him aloft. What choice do I have but to stop, breathe deeply in the palm of the present, to shuck what isn't and savor what is? Thank you all.
I'm kidding, I like it. I'm going to do this from here. I would like to invite our student poet laureate up. Miss Ria Saxena, please. Hey, honey, good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we've created the position of student poet laureate, and you are our first one.
Thank you.
So this is a citation, whereas Ria Saxena, a member of South Windsor High School, is recognized as the first student poet laureate for the town of South Windsor. Ria was awarded first place of the Connecticut Bar Association Law Day Contest and presented the poem to the Connecticut Supreme Court judges. Ria's work highlights important social issues and legal precedents. Therefore be it that I, Elizabeth Pendleton, Mayor of the town of South Windsor, acting on behalf of the town council and the residents of South Windsor, acknowledge you as Ria Saxena, the student poet laureate for South Windsor. Thank you. Congratulations. And you have every chance to read that. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I prepared a small poem today, but before I begin, I would just like to thank a few people. Thank you, of course, to Mr. Margolis, whose support has been unwavering and just so impactful for the past year. Thank you to Mr. Paterna, and thank you to my mom, who's always been there. So this poem I actually wrote for my AP Lang class, and it's called Doubt and Beauty, where I considered what poetry really is. Am I a poet who doesn't even know it? Do the veins in my arms form threads in a tapestry I cannot see? When I rub my eyes, I see stars. When I look at my wrists, I see roots. The rose in my hand, simply gardens. A rose in my hand, art on art. Then again, what truly is poetry? What if all I speak are facious words, light and pretty as feathers, that carry no weight? How do I draw a line in the sand to determine what is good enough before untimely waves crash down and change my expectations yet again? If I dump enough brushstrokes on a canvas, can I call this art? If I dump enough dictionary words on a page, can I call this poetry? On second thought, however, I suppose everything is poetry. The way water flows on honeyed afternoons, and the sound of peace right before thunderstorms, or that strange feeling as chapters of your life fly by like leaves in autumn. After all, life would be quite pretty if we all agreed that it was poetry. Anything can be beautiful if we're willing to put aside our fast lives to call it poetry. Thank you.
Right. Now moving on with our agenda, we are now on item 7, public input on any items on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on any items on the agenda? Anyone from the public would like to speak about any items that are on the agenda? Going for a third time, anyone from the public would like to speak on any items on the agenda? Not seeing any, we'll move on. Item number 8, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. Councilor Kubasky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Approval of the February 21st, 2023 Town Council meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of February 21st, 2023.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion, corrections, deletions on the minutes? Not hearing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Oh, you're going to abstain? Can we get a roll call, please?
Counselor Evans?
Yes.
Counselor Kubasky?
Yes.
Counselor Lopez? Counselor Paterna?
Yes?
Mayor Pendleton?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor King?
Yes.
Counselor Kozakowski?
Yes.
Counselor Gamble?
Yes.
Counselor Lidecker?
Count, please.
701 or 710?
6,
701.
7, 0.
7 yeses, 0 noes, 1 abstention.
Thank you. And now moving on. We have item 9, communications from liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Does anyone have any reports to give? Yes.
Madam Mayor, I just want to remind everyone that Monday, March 13th, right here in this room, the South Windsor Energy Committee will be sponsoring a South Windsor Community Forum, How the Inflation Reduction Act Can Save You Money on Energy Costs and Save the Planet, moderated by Steve Lewis, a member of the Energy Committee. Thank you. 7 o'clock on March 13th.
Thank you. I'd just like to report that I attended the Patriotic Commission meeting, which is online. They did do the Go Bag for their meeting, and they did do recording of that. So they will have it on G Media to watch the Patriotic Commission. They're an extremely busy commission, and they were discussing the banner program. So as I mentioned earlier, if anyone is interested in sponsoring a banner for any of the veterans, they have 25 polls that they can put 25 banners up on. So if anyone's interested, they can contact the Patriotic Commission. And moving on, does anyone else have reports? Yes, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to report that the WPCA, their meeting is going to be moving to March 21st. It was originally scheduled for this Wednesday, but it's moving to March 21st.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Kozakowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to report that last week, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a meeting and continued some public hearings regarding the residential moratoriums on residential subdivisions and multifamily housing. And they, so with those applications, there was proposed text amendments to the zoning code, zoning regulations, and subdivision regulations. They closed the public hearings on those text amendments. They did decide on extending the residential moratorium for an additional 4 weeks beyond the 12 months that they initially, or 9 months, 10 months, whatever, however long the duration was, I don't remember, but an additional 4 weeks so they can finalize the language. They are holding a special meeting tomorrow in the Madden Room to deliberate on the text amendments, as well as hold an executive session on the pending litigation for the Talbot Lane application. So the executive session will not be open to the public, but the rest of the meeting will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other reports? Not hearing any. There's a glass in the way. I can't see your microphone if it's lit up, so. Okay, item number 10, reports from committees. Is there any reports from committees? Mr. Maniscalco, the audit committee is going to be meeting as soon as possible. Needs to meet.
The audit committee is meeting on Wednesday, the 8th at 11 o'clock via Zoom. And then
April 8th?
March 8th. March 8th.
Oh, wonderful, thank you.
And then our Insurance Control Commission meeting is on the 8th as well at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock on the 8th as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And moving on, we have already done, no one else has any other reports? Is that correct? Okay, moving on, we have item 11, the consent agenda, please. And that is Councilor Paterno, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the second reading. I make a motion to approve items 11B1 through 11B2 as a second reading on the consent agenda. That includes Joseph Kennedy on the Water Pollution Control Authority and Claudia Bernstein as a member of the South Windsor Alliance for Families.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Not seeing any? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Item 12 is unfinished business. We have none. Item 13A, B, C, and D we've already done. We're now on item E, and I would like to have Councilor Leidecker please read that.
Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 presentation to the Town Council.
Thank you, Councilor Leidecker. I'd like to welcome the Chair of the Board of Education, Craig Zimmerman, who's going to be speaking to us about the Board of Education budget.
Thank you, Mayor Pendleton, Deputy Mayor King, the remaining Town Council members, and Town Manager Maniscalco. As the Chairman of the Board of Education, I wanted to make a few comments on our proposed budget for the next school year before turning things over to our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carter, who will make our main budget presentation tonight. The Board of Education unanimously agreed with and voted to support this budget. While the 7.95% increase is higher than usual, as you will hear tonight, it's not only fiscally responsible, but it also fulfills our role as advocates for continuing to provide the best possible education to each of our students. More about that shortly. Please note that this budget does not include any major new additional programs. The main factor affecting the budget we're bringing to you tonight is the fact that we are, and you'll hear this from Dr. Carter in some fashion, the fastest growing school district in the state. In the last 10 years, we've added almost 800 students, an 18% increase. Please remember that over the last several years, decisions to limit spending that helped to lower our per-student expenditures, now among the lowest in the state, have already been made on a bipartisan basis. While budget discussions are often about dollars spent and potential tax increases, we should also remember that the education we provide to each of our students, had a good example of that a few minutes ago, every day, not only has a profound effect on their futures, it also indicates our priorities, what we as individuals and we as a town think is important. The fact that many new families want their children to attend our school system maximizes the resale value of our homes, which for most families is their largest and most important asset for their retirement. At most of our meetings, we have the opportunity to see firsthand the great work, the magic, as Dr. Carter likes to say, being done in our classrooms each and every day. Students at all ages come and show us what they're working on. We always learn from these presentations. They make us proud to be part of our school system. Sometimes it also results in a few tears, if you were at our meeting recently. As an example, at our meeting last week, some students from Pleasant Valley Elementary School told us about their I Am Me book project that highlights the work being done every day in this and our other schools on the increasing diversity and ongoing kindness of our students. Their enthusiastic presentation was just another example of the important work being done by all of our teachers and staff. The other Board of Ed members and I are looking forward to working with our school administration, continuing to look forward to working with our school administration and each of you to ensure the continued excellence in our schools. I also want to take this public opportunity on behalf of the entire Board of Ed to thank all of our administrators, teachers, and staff. At a time when many are leaving the education profession, hopefully all of our staff continue to understand just how much they're both respected and appreciated. The entire board and I are looking forward to discussing our budget with you at our joint meeting at Timothy Edwards Middle School on Wednesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. It's now my great pleasure to turn things over to Dr. Carter for the full presentation of our budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Welcome, Dr. Kate Carter, Superintendent of our schools. And we have a PowerPoint, so
Good evening, Mayor Pendleton, Deputy Mayor King, Town Council members, and Mr. Maniscalco. I am pleased to present to you the Board of Education's proposed budget for fiscal year 2024. Tonight, I begin the presentation not with a dollar figure, not with a percentage increase, not with a chart or bar graph, but with a map that reveals the most influential aspect of our budget story, South Windsor's status as an outlier. This map of Connecticut is color-coded to reflect statewide school enrollment trends over a 10-year period between 2012 and 2022. Visually, you can see lots of towns in reds, oranges, and yellows, all representing districts that declined in enrollment during this time period, including districts that declined as much as 25%. You will see a much smaller number of towns in green, representing districts that increased in enrollment over this time period up to 10%. But what should be of most interest to our community is the sole town in purple. South Windsor is the only town in the entire state that is shaded in purple indicating that it is the only town to increase its enrollment by a percentage greater than 10%. Let's take a look at the statewide breakdown. 19 towns decreased by 25% or more. 51 towns decreased by 15 to 25%. 39 towns decreased by 10 to 15%. And 46 towns decreased by 10% or less, for a total of 155 out of 169 towns experiencing declining enrollment. There were 11 towns that increased up to 5%. Only 2 towns increased between 5 and 10%, leaving only 13 towns out of 169 that experienced increased enrollment under 10%. Finally, South Windsor stands alone as the only one out of 169 towns that experienced a greater than 10% increase in enrollment. Our status as an outlier is undeniable and must be the lens through which the proposed budget is viewed. With that context, let's move on to the proposed budget. The proposed new appropriation for FY 2024 is $88,221,342, representing a 7.95% increase over last year's appropriation. The new appropriation, coupled with the use of $1 million in reserve funds, equates to a total expenditure plan of $89,221,342. This represents a 6.58% increase over last year's expenditure plan. Let's take a look at some of the main drivers within the budget. The overarching drivers of the budget increase fall into one of 4 categories: costs associated with contractual obligations and maintenance of operations, increasing enrollment, special education, and strategic planning. In the first category, the largest driver is contractual salary increases. In addition, this category includes costs associated with healthcare, technology, building operations, energy, the partial cost of lawn services moved from town to BOE budget, and the sunset of ARP ESSER funds. The second category represents expenses associated with increasing enrollment. Positions needed to respond to enrollment include custodians, math interventionists, a registered nurse, school psychologist, English learner teacher, coordinator of student relations and behavioral support, increased staffing for our preschool program, TE associate principal, TE and high school safety officers, 2 high school subject area teachers, and an LPN. And across the district, more technology is needed to meet the growing number of students. The third category represents special education funding to meet IEP requirements and other mandated programming, including increases in transportation and outplacement costs. It also calls for a special education supervisor and a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. The final category represents costs associated with strategic planning initiatives. This category includes elementary safety officers, high school instructional coaches, investments in after-school enrichment, funding for the state-mandated reading program, and cybersecurity insurance. A detailed summary of the costs of the initiatives in all 4 categories can be found on page 4 in the budget book. Now that I reviewed the drivers of the budget increase, it would also be instructive to showcase the significant reductions that were made proactively as part of the budget process. The starting point for our budget began at $92,096,697, representing a 12.69% increase over last year's appropriation. The following conditions make up that starting point: all requests from schools and departments funded, no retirement savings factored in, the sunset of the ARP ESSER funds, and no reliance on reserves. Under those conditions, the increase would have been 12.69%. I have outlined the process we used to make $3.9 million in cuts from that starting point. In the first round of reductions, we factored in retirement savings as well as transportation savings achieved by changing the start times for our elementary schools and preschool program. Those actions allowed us to cut the budget by just over $1 million, bringing the percentage increase down to 11.46%. In the second round of reductions, we cut new staffing and program requests. We significantly reduced funds for building and sites, and we made various reductions across all schools and departments. That translated to a reduction of over $1.8 million, bringing the percentage increase down to 9.17%. In the third round, we were able to reduce the requested increase in appropriation by utilizing $1 million of reserve funding from healthcare and special education reserve funds. Factoring in the use of these reserves brought us to the superintendent's, now Board of Education's, proposed budget increase of 7.95%. Typically, I don't get in the weeds and share this level of detail regarding the many cuts we make prior to finalizing the proposed budget, as I believe that is just simply me doing my job and doesn't require a lot of fanfare. But I thought highlighting the reduction process would be a helpful reminder of the approach I have used for all of my past proposed budgets. In fact, I'm going to read to you verbatim what I said during a budget presentation over a decade ago in January 2012. The conventional wisdom in budget building is often to ask for 4% if you need 2%, ask for 8 if you need 6, because there will always be cuts just for the sake of cuts. I had faith that if I delivered a transparent, straightforward budget, that the game of asking for more than what you need just to secure the minimum of what you need would be unnecessary. Although I made these statements over a decade ago, they remain just as true today. Because the proposed budget is the highest percentage increase I have requested to date, some may wonder if my approach has changed. It has not. Inflating a budget just so that it can withstand cuts is nothing more than theater, and South Windsor deserves more than just theater. The budget increase is higher because it reflects the true cost of running one of the fastest growing districts in the state. It reflects the cumulative effect of growing year over year over a sustained period of time. Speaking of increasing enrollment, let's take a closer look at our growth. Between 2015 and 2022, district enrollment has increased by 742 students. Today, demographers are projecting that our district will increase by an additional 748 students by 2032. This next slide demonstrates that South Windsor is clearly an outlier in comparison to other Hartford County Derby towns. The other 6 towns experienced either declining enrollment or marginal increases in enrollment. South Windsor stands in stark contrast with a 23.4% increase in its K-5 population and a 13.9% increase in its K-12 population between 2017 and 2021. Our K-5 population is forecast to peak in 2026 and remain stable until 2032. This next slide provides you with historical data and projected enrollment for grades 6 through 8. Between now and 2029, TE is expected to increase by an additional 332 students, followed by the first signs of a downturn in the year 2030. South Windsor High School has had relatively stable enrollment for the past decade and is now poised to feel the effects of our enrollment surge, which began first at our elementary schools. Over the next 10 years, South Windsor High School is projected to increase by 500 additional students. As expected, our special education population is growing, and so is the intensity of needs. Besides the moral imperative to meet the needs of all students, the district is also required by law to provide these services. Thus, very little is discretionary within the special education budget. I do want to highlight, however, our specialized in-district programs, which in their absence would increase the number of students being outplaced. For context, the cost of a single outplacement currently ranges from $54,000 to $242,000, depending on the complexity of the student's needs. Our in-district programs allow us to best serve our students by allowing them to access their education in the least restrictive environment, but it also has the added benefit of being more cost-effective. The programs listed on this slide are all offered in district. They do require a great deal of staffing, but in the end, this approach remains more cost-effective than outplacements. Another example of increasing intensity of needs can be seen within our English learner population. 10 years ago, we served 97 English learner students. Currently, we serve 443 EL students. That is 4.5 times more students, or a 357% increase since 2012. Over the past 5 years, our EL population has more than doubled, or grew by 107%. In response, the proposed budget calls for an additional English learner teacher to support our growing English learner needs. It may be of interest to note that 63 different languages are spoken in our students' homes. Let's take a look at how our EL population compares to other districts in our DIRG. As you can see from this next slide, in 2021, South Windsor had the highest percentage of EL students within our DIRG. Last year, 7.6% of our population required EL services. We estimate this current year that our percentage will grow to 9%. The previous slides related to special education and English learner instruction represent areas that are governed by law. We are required to meet our legal obligations. But providing just what we are legally required to do is not reflective of the values of our community, nor is adopting a budget that only funds the bare minimum and fails to move our district forward. Over the years, I have been asked, what would the district need just to keep the lights on? The question is difficult to answer in part because if you ask 20 people what they mean by just keeping the lights on, you will get 20 different answers. Regardless, we also know families aren't moving here because we just managed to keep the lights on. They are moving here because this is a community that champions public education, a community that takes pride in its schools and is committed to investing in its children. Families are moving here because we are an inclusive community that endeavors to meet the needs of the whole child. We know this because families tell us. But we also know this by collecting data. The data on the next 3 slides demonstrates that our students and families are hungry for more than just keeping the lights on. 1,444 is the number of college credits high school students earned through UConn's ECE and community college partnerships last year. 60 is the number of world language students who earned the seal of biliteracy over the past 2 years. 957 is the number of high school student athletes we coach across all high school teams in 1 school year. 80 is the number of TE students who report to school an hour early every Friday morning just to access more math instruction. 477 is the number of 4th and 5th grade students who currently have elected to learn a musical instrument. 2,500 is the number of college applications our students generated this year. 58 is the number of different clubs offered at the high school. 171 is the number of TE students who tried out for the boys and girls soccer teams with only 44 spots to offer. 24 is the number of TE students who participated in the CAS Leadership Conference. 2,000 is the number of residents who attend the Student Art Show at the Public Library on opening night. 500 is the number of K-12 student artists who display their work at the art show. 585 is the number of TE students who are involved in orchestra, chorus, or band. 52 is the number of elementary students involved in school leadership teams. 158 is the number of veterans our elementary school students welcomed into their schools for Veterans Day. 972 is the number of hours that National Honor Society students volunteered last year. 377 is the number of students who took 1 or more AP classes last year. 60 is the number of high school students who participate in robotics. 73 is the number of high school students who applied to Dr. Carter's Kindness Scholarship last year. 438 is the number of elementary students across the district who were turned away after the 280 seats for after-school math and STEM clubs were filled. 233 is the number of TE students who signed up in just 1 day for matinee after-school activities. 150 is the number of students participating in Model UN. 627 is the number of high school students currently enrolled in music electives. 27 is the number of TE students who were mentored by a high school student last year. 3,146 is the number of dollars our elementary students raised for Connecticut Children's Medical Center. 37 is the percentage of high school students enrolled in one or more computer science courses, which places us first in our DIRG and second in the state for participation levels. 347 is the number of high school students requesting culinary classes. 114 is the number of students we had to turn away. 191 is the number of high school students who volunteer through the Interact Club. And finally, 4,917 is the number of pre-K through 12 students who are seen, heard, valued, and celebrated in our schools every day. Clearly, our students are hungry for experiences beyond just the basics. And this hunger reflects the very ideals promoted in our Portrait of a Graduate. We want our students to be engaged, empowered, socially conscious, and resilient. Our newly adopted strategic plan reflects our commitment to continuous improvement and sets goals that will deliver the outstanding educational experiences our community demands. Our students and families are hungry for opportunities that ensure our students are career and college ready. Our students want to be artists and athletes, mathematicians and musicians, engineers and educators, nurses and nuclear physicists, soldiers and software designers, landscapers and lawyers, restaurateurs and radiologists, manufacturers and microbiologists, inventors and interpreters, bakery owners and bankers, farmers and florists, civil engineers and civil rights activists. Our students want to be leaders and learners. They want to start families and end wars. They want to be local volunteers and global citizens. I am proud that our schools support our kids on this journey, but wherever their career paths take them, I hope that kindness will be the compass they use to navigate that journey. While I am advocating for the resources our students need to achieve their dreams, I recognize that this advocacy must also be fiscally responsible. I would not be doing my job if I sought resources without considering other competing demands and serving the taxpayer well. While my job is to be an advocate for the children and families of South Windsor, I am also responsible for managing over $80 million of taxpayer money. I take this part of my job very seriously. We are steadfast in our effort to deliver an outstanding education as efficiently as possible. In fact, the next 4 slides will clearly demonstrate that our district operations are highly efficient. Our long-standing efforts to bend the cost curve are evident in the recently published comparisons of education spending by town. For the 5th consecutive year, the number of districts that spend more per pupil than South Windsor has increased. South Windsor's FY 2022 net current expenditures per pupil is significantly lower than the state average, and for the 3rd consecutive year has the lowest NCEP in the entire DIRG B category. As you can see, for the past 3 years, every district in our DIRG spent more per pupil than South Windsor. The 5-year look back of statewide analysis is even more compelling. You can see a steadily increasing number of districts are spending more per pupil than South Windsor. In 2022, only 5 districts out of 166 spent less per pupil than South Windsor, with 160 districts spending more per pupil than South Windsor. Said another way, 96% of school districts spent more per pupil than South Windsor. That is worth repeating. 96% of school districts spent more per pupil than South Windsor. Clearly, the Board of Education has been an excellent financial steward. Let's take a look at what our budget increases we would need if we were simply aiming to match the average per pupil expenditures within DIRG B districts and the state as a whole. Last year, if we developed a spending plan reflective of DIRG B's average NCEP, we would have needed to spend an additional $16.5 million just to be average in our DIRG. The statewide comparison is even more compelling. Last year, if we had developed a spending plan based on the state's average NCEP, we would have needed to spend an additional $24.2 million. Some will look at this NCEP data as a badge of honor and will feel proud that we can run such a high-quality school district with such efficiency. Others will feel embarrassed that 96% of the state invests more per student than South Windsor. I genuinely understand both perspectives, but I am hoping that no matter whether people feel proud or embarrassed, that everyone can agree our NCEP data, coupled with the natural rising costs of our increasing enrollment, demonstrate that the proposed budget increase is warranted and reasonable. Some would even argue long overdue. It should also be noted that our status as a highly efficient district is also a reflection of our hardworking staff who find ways to do more with less every day. However, if we fail to be good financial stewards and fail to adopt budgets that keep pace with enrollment, our teachers will eventually just be doing less with less. Which brings me to a few words about our amazing staff. While across the country, many in the workforce are quietly quitting, South Windsor teachers and school staff are loudly working. The sentiment behind this play on words from the HR phenomenon of quiet quitting cannot be overstated. Our teachers and school staff are working loudly. And by that, I mean they not only show up, but they go above and beyond each and every day. Our staff's commitment to the children and families we serve is something to celebrate and something to honor. Families we serve is something to celebrate and something to honor. I would also add, communities who ignore the teacher shortage do so at their own peril. I am proud that South Windsor is viewed across the state as a destination district for educators and support staff looking to work for an organization where they feel valued, empowered, seen, heard, and appreciated. And if any of our staff is watching this presentation, please know you are valued, empowered, seen, heard, and appreciated. I am truly in awe of what you do each and every day. But make no mistake, South Windsor is not immune to the teacher shortage, which is why it is critical that we equip our teachers with the resources they need to do their jobs well. And let's not forget how important their job is. Our school staff keeps our community's children physically safe each and every day. Our school staff keeps our students emotionally safe each and every day. Our teachers help our students develop the skills they need to read, write, calculate, and think critically. They prepare our students to be career and college ready, ready to enter the workforce, military, or post-secondary education. Teaching is the profession that makes all other professions possible. Finally, I conclude this presentation with images of our amazing school community. It's easy to get caught up in numbers and percentages during a budget presentation, but we must remember who those numbers and percentages represent. Behind DERG rankings, NCEP calculations, healthcare costs, and enrollment projections are human beings, the people that we serve, specifically our students, staff, and families. Thank you, and I look forward to working with the Town Council and the Board of Education to deliver an outstanding education to the children and families of South Windsor.
I'm holding. Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Carter, for that presentation. And it was in my head, but it wasn't on my paper, that I'd like to say thank you to the women teachers that we've had and staff that we've had within our school systems, from the nurses to the gym teachers to the art teachers, in looking back at my own education in South Windsor, and including the bus drivers, and going back and how the bus drivers can touch a little person's life. It's important. And I thank your staff and the women of your staff for this month. So Dr. Carter, I thank you for that presentation. And we have the school budget already that has been given to us at our last meeting that we can look over. And this evening, we're not going to have any questions of you. We'll wait until we have our joint work session with the Board of Ed at Alt 6. And that should be, I believe, when is that?
22nd?
April 22nd of this month?
Yep.
It's a pretty good memory, 22 this month. There you go. So thank you for the presentation, and now we're going to move on to item F. Appreciate you. Thank you, Board of Ed members and Chair Craig Zimmerman. And Assistant Superintendents, thank you. And moving on, we are now on item F. Counselor Evans.
Resolution setting a time and place for public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed Board of Education budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Councilor Gamble, item G, please.
Thank you. A discussion item regarding the Wood Memorial Library and Museum grant. And you're not.
Before we start, we have a public hearing at 8:15. You can begin. My alarm's going to go off. I set my alarm just to let you know. I do believe we have about, there right now, that's my alarm, 8:12. So at 8:15, we have a public hearing. If you'd like to start, you can.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. I just want to let you know that I did submit a summary of the Wood Memorial Library HVAC project to you on Thursday. I believe we're actually mandated on Thursday, outlining the need for the additional funds, what the funds would do for the library, the conditions of the existing library, and I was really here to answer any questions you had regarding the summary I had Amanda send out to you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Majors? I do. Can, on the back of the presentation on the documents that you gave us into our packet,
Yes.
you broke down the cost of the construction, and the total cost estimate is, you have $177,000, but you've already received $149,000?
That's correct.
So why are we asking for $75,000 instead of like $28,000?
In that same memo on page 2, you'll see that the total grant funds were $149,000. Engineering costs were $19,530. Lead and asbestos testing were $33.99. Redesign and mods and rebid, up $3,000 to $5,000. Don't know yet, and I'll explain that in a minute. Has materials abatement is $57.62, which leaves us with $109,601. So with the $75,000 with contingency.
Will bring us back up to the 177.
Right around there, yes.
I got you. Okay. So these engineering costs, lead and asbestos, redesign, and the hazmat was not in the initial cost of the construction estimate here on this back page?
So they weren't known at the time, correct? We didn't know what we really were going to have to do in order to get this out to bid and do a design until we actually did the design.
Okay.
So
So we're going to now, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Majors concerning this? And now we're going to be moving on to setting a public hearing for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, from a procedural standpoint, you guys would need to set a public hearing to hear from the public, and then you would make the appropriation probably at the next meeting after you had that public hearing. I also just wanted to add just a quick caveat, because I know it's a little different with it being Wood Memorial Library, and that's a nonprofit, and the interaction and why the town is involved in this. So essentially, it's a state pass-through grant that came from the state to the town. The town has to administer that grant. So there's a number of key requirements that need to be reported back to the state. So as a result, I asked Mr. Majors to manage and oversee this to make sure that we're meeting certain requirements related to labor requirements, grant, RFPs and other things like that, that most likely Memorial Library would struggle with actually being able to do. So since it's coming through the town, if we just pass that money along to Wood and they didn't actually meet those requirements, we could find ourselves in a little bit of a sticky situation as a result. So rather than find ourselves in that type of a scenario, I'd much rather have Mr. Majors managing that and moving it forward for the good of the community as a whole, so.
Okay. So that was a discussion, and before we move on to the resolution for setting a time and place, we have to have our public hearing. So I'd like to hold off right here, right now, suspend the meeting so we can do a public hearing, unless anyone else has any questions for Mr. Majors. None? I think you're good to go. Is he good to go? Because all we have to do is set a public hearing. Did you have questions? Yeah, I did. Okay, so hang out, okay? So I'm going to suspend the meeting and go into the public hearing, please, at 8:15. Can you read the notice, please?
To be published in the Journal Enquirer, February 23rd, 2023, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Notice is hereby given that the South Windsor Town Council has sat Monday, March 6, 2023 at 8:15 p.m. in the council chambers of South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $35,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the FEMA dispatch renovations account.
Thank you. And I'm calling the public hearing to order. If there's anyone from the public that has any comments at this public hearing concerning the $35,000 from the capital non-recurring account. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public? And it's traditional that after a public hearing, we do a straw poll. All those in favor to raise your hand for the $35,000 from capital non-recurring to renovate the FEMA dispatch center. You don't count. Sorry, you're not public. Oh, that's cheating. You can't raise two hands either. No. And Scott, don't even go there with your legs. Okay, it's not going to work. Okay. Is there anyone that's in favor of this? Please raise your hands. Oh, there we go. There we go. I love it. Is there anyone against? Not seeing any. We shall close the public hearing now. We'll go back to the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Majors.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And Councilor Kozakowski, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just clarifying question. So this is a building that's not town property, correct?
So it's a building that belongs to a nonprofit organization within the town, correct?
Okay.
I believe it also houses some town documents, though.
Okay, so Wood Memorial applied for a grant. They got it. It needs to be administered through the town based on the rules, and we're doing that. Did the grant fully fund the project at that time that it was applied?
No.
No.
So there's always going to be a gap.
Well, with this additional funds, we should be able to get what they are looking for, what they're looking for an HVAC system for the building.
Okay.
I don't know if I understand your question. I'm sorry. Could you repeat your question for me?
Yeah. So when was this grant applied for and granted?
2020, right?
End of 2020, early 2021.
Okay, so I'm assuming costs went up over the last few years, and when the grant was applied for, did it cover the estimated cost of the entire project?
Well,
back then?
So it was basically they offered a narrative to the state for what they wanted to do. The narrative doesn't really fully encompass what we're going to do. And we wouldn't really know what we're going to do until we have an engineer design a system. So I know what you're thinking, but really until we have an engineer look at the building and determine what we can do, then we really know what we can afford, to be honest with you.
Okay, so you throw a number out there, we think it's going to cost about this much, and then
Correct.
once you know that you're gonna secure some funding, you needle down and figure out exactly how much
Correct,
you need.
exactly right.
And fast forward 3 years, it comes out to $177,000.
Correct.
Okay, so,
And that was a few months ago, so I want to just put that out
2 months
there.
ago,
Yeah.
no, I understand, it could always go up.
It's very hard to come up with hard numbers today, because nobody really knows. Nobody really knows. And nobody's going to stick their neck out to give you a hard number either.
Yeah, no, I understand, and we've had enough capital projects meetings to realize that everything is costing more
Yes.
as time passes. So the question is, well, next question. So there's a gap of about 75,000, a little bit less, coming out of the town's, in the idea is to fund it out of the town's budget, right? The capital budget.
Yeah, it's coming out of the capital non-recurring account.
I mean, is it common for the town to be expending its resources for on a building that's not the town's?
Well, I think it's common for municipalities to work in partnership with their nonprofit partners in the community if it benefits the community as a whole.
Okay. Are there any other organizations that we help support in this way?
Yeah, so, I mean, we provide grant funds to the library. We provide grant funds to the fire department. All of those are nonprofit organizations that we do on an annual basis.
Okay, so this is a normal thing that we do?
Yeah.
Okay, and have we, and we've supported, I'm assuming, financially the Wood Memorial over the years?
Yes, we provide them an annual grant as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Majors? Not hearing any. Thank you, Mr. Majors, for the, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Paterno.
Madam Mayor, thank you. So actually for Mr. Maniscalco first, doesn't the town store some documents?
Yeah, as I said, we do have some of our historic documents
So
from
we
the
have,
clerk's
we
office
have
that we've stored
a
there.
stake, so to speak, in that building in the sense that the humidity and the climate control is going to help make sure those documents are preserved. So those are town documents. They've been storing them for us for many years, from what I understand.
A long time before I got here.
Right, right. And I think the other issue for me is, if you talk about supporting this nonprofit, and we do this with the Historical Society as well, but think about what the Wood Memorial Library brings to this town in terms of cultural events. The Gingerbread Festival every year, 10,000 people are in that building because of their sponsorship. So to me, there's great value there, so I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Majors, for coming this evening and explaining this project. Thank you for the information where we had to look things up, where we received the information. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Thank you. And moving on to item H, Councilor Paterno, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $75,000 from the capital non-recurring funds to the Wood Memorial Library and Museum steep grant account for HVAC upgrades. Be resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, March 20th, 2023 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $75,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the Wood Memorial Library HVAC upgrades steep grant account project.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Any discussion? I'm sorry. Go ahead, any discussion? Not seeing any? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you, Councilor Paterno. And now moving on to item I, and Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A resolution authorizing the appropriation of $35,000 from capital and non-recurring funds account to the FEMA dispatch renovations account to install 2 911 backup dispatch workstations at the EOC. Whereas the Town Council wishes to use $35,000 in capital non-recurring funds to fund the 25% local matching portion of a 2022 Congressional Direct Spending EOC award of $112,000 to assist in paying for the installation of 2 911 backup dispatch workstations at the EOC. And whereas on October 21st, 2021, the Town of South Windsor submitted a grant application to United States Senator Christopher Murphy's office to request a congressional direct spending EOC grant for $112,000 to install 2 911 backup dispatching positions at the Emergency Operations Center. And whereas on April 7th, 2022, the town of South Windsor was notified that the town of South Windsor was awarded the grant with the 25% local matching funding equaling $28,000. And whereas on September 19th, 2022, Marcus Communications submitted a quote for $116,813.42 to complete the project from vendors matching FEMA procurement requirements. And whereas on November 23rd, 2022, the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection officially awarded the grant to the town of South Windsor. And whereas the submitted Marcus Communications quote exceeds the original budget of $112,000, and now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby authorizes the town manager, Michael Maniscalco, town manager, to transfer $35,000 from the Capital 9 recurring account to the FEMA dispatch renovations account to account to the increased cost to install 2 911 backup dispatch workstations at the EOC.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Any questions? Deputy Mayor King?
No.
I'm waiting for Councilor Gamble because I think his wheels are spinning over there. No, you good? Councilor Kozakowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to confirm that this was reviewed by the Capital Projects Committee and was approved.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would just like to confirm with looking at this, this is not to hire dispatchers to put down there in the EOC. This is strictly because in here, in one of the whereases, it says dispatching positions. So I want to make it clear that this is not positions of dispatchers. This is the actual physical desk location, property, computers that a dispatcher, a backup dispatcher would come down and would use.
Correct. This is for the physical positions that they would work out of.
Locations.
Councilor Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. Sorry for the delay.
No worries.
So in the EOC seems to be taking on a huge life of its own. And this is just another item that's important that we're looking to purchase. But is there more coming? Like, is this the end? Are we continuing like another phase of this EOC? It just feels like there's more and more and more. And now backup 911 desks for, as Councilor Kozakowski and others noted, it was more significant than just putting desks in a regular office. And so it just seems like every time we do something for the EOC, it's important, but it always seems like it's like triple the price of what you would normally think. So I just want to, is there an end in sight? Is this, is there more that's coming, I guess?
Yes, so.
Is this going to beget something else down the road that now we have this, we need to get that?
Yeah, if you look at the original plans for the EOC, this location was always identified as a backup dispatch location. It makes sense for our community to have a second location within it to provide dispatch somewhere. So this is not like it's an addition to the EOC. It's always kind of been a part of the plan. It's more or less that we found an opportunity to actually fund it when it wasn't able to be funded in the original renovations that happened down there. What I would say is at some point in the future, what that point is, I'm not sure. We will have to look at, end of life for certain pieces of equipment down there and renovations to those end of life type things. But
I get, yeah.
From a big picture overall, what capabilities are at the EOC and what are we going to be able to do there? Additionally, this is pretty much the last thing to add on to it to get it done, for lack of a better term.
So looking through the plan, this is, I don't want to say the end, but this is pretty.
This is like the last piece of that original plan that wasn't completed that.
So when did the plan come out originally? Sorry for my.
Oh, that's way before myself.
So there was no way to actually, like with Mr. Majors, there was no way to actually gauge how much this was going to cost when you originally did the plan to know it was going to be
Yeah, I mean, I think the town put aside something like $3 million at that time to do the renovations to that facility. And I think through that process, as we've seen with many other municipal building processes, we go through a value engineering process because for whatever reason, we don't meet our budget. And the dispatch center was removed from that original project, so.
So in following up to Councilor Kozakowski's question, this was approved by the capital projects, and this is, I mean, it's a, you know, not that much money in the grand scheme of things, so it's not really having a negative impact on that.
Correct, and I would, you know, I'd also say that it's important to recognize that, you know, we also got a federal grant that's, you know, multiple dollars for every dollar we spend at this point. So,
Right.
I mean, we're getting,
I mean, it's
we're
still,
getting a good bang for our buck.
it's somebody's money, right? So,
Correct.
but, all right, thank you.
Mr. Summers, could I ask you, Fire Marshal Summers, can I ask you a question? I'm sure you didn't expect me to ask you a question.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Sure. My question is, since you are the cell tower kind of guy that's dealing with the cell towers in town, and knowing that our police dispatchers are over at the police department now, and there were improvements that were made to the cell tower, they're bouncing off of somewhere, something. Well, we have, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Will we have difficulty with the dispatcher down at the EOC since we're kind of like in a little hill valley here? What do you think?
No, that is a remote site, so it only needs a small antenna on the outside to get to the main system. So it will not be a problem getting out of there.
No problems at all with any, we don't need another cell tower anywhere or a bouncer off or
I'll always
somewhere?
take one, but no.
Yeah, well, we
no,
could always use one, right.
No.
Okay. I just, I know how important that is. I mean, after that one event, that whatever we had.
So currently, we just have, there right now is little mobile radios.
Yeah.
That have small antennas on the outside, and it communicates wonderfully out. So it'll be no problem for us to operate out of there.
Okay. Because I want to make sure that, you know, our first responders are all in check with one another, and the fire department's always good to go once they hear what they got to do, so.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions? Deputy Mayor King.
Two quick ones just to follow up. I know we discussed this at our last meeting. However, when do we expect the completion of this project? Roughly. I know you can't guarantee, you're not God, but.
So we are being told that the furniture delivery is 12 to 16 weeks out, and then it'll be probably 60 days, 90 days of installation. What's that, 7 months?
Okay, so
I
we're
would
talking
think.
about the end of 2023.
Oh, it'll be functional by the end of this year, yes.
So with that in mind, and kind of intertwining some of these questions, so we have the 2 desks that we talked about last time that we met. Who are the bodies that are going to fill those desks? And are we going to be asked, is that going to be part of another budget or?
So just so everybody's clear, these are backup locations.
Right.
For the dispatch that's at the police department.
Yep.
So what we're creating is, in the event something were to happen at the police department that knocks it offline or makes it not safe to be there.
Yep.
We can then take those dispatchers from that location and move them to the EOC to do their job from there seamlessly without having to skip a beat. Additionally, in the event of like a major event, a hurricane or something of that nature, we typically have to bring additional people in anyways. So we may station somebody at the EOC to then work with us directly there to handle some of those hurricane-related calls to allow the dispatchers at the police department to handle the police-related calls or other types of calls, or to even just help out in communicating between the EOC and the dispatch over at the police department. So it's not like we're hiring extra bodies to fill this position or anything of that nature. It's just we're creating 2 locations that will serve as a backup location for the current dispatch that we have now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can we like get awards for our EOC and get monies or grants for our EOC?
Well, you did get a grant for this project. I mean, the grant was 112,000?
I'm sorry, we got 84,000 federal dollars for this
Okay,
part.
so, I mean.
We're
we are
not
getting
talking
close.
going regional again, are we?
We have not had that conversation as of recent.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And now moving on with this resolution, we have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We are now on item J. Counselor Evans.
Thank you. Amending the Open Government Initiative Resolution of December 16, 2019. Whereas the Town Council is committed to open government initiative in order to facilitate greater citizen participation in town government, and whereas 4 objectives are identified in the Open Government Initiative. 1, participation, to encourage more involvement by South Windsor citizens to become engaged with their government and share ideas and expertise with the town government, town staff, elected officials, and commission members. 2, collaboration, to facilitate collaboration among citizens and bring together multiple perspectives while encouraging participation, partnerships, and cooperation while solving problems and identifying community needs. 3, accessibility, to make available and accessible all information regarding town business that may be necessary and meaningful to town citizens. 4, accountability, to ensure all government officials and town commission members uphold their responsibilities and obligations of their respective positions and ensure they act in the best interests of the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby directs the town manager to make available the equipment and facilities necessary to video record the town commission meetings and for video recordings of town commission meetings to be regularly uploaded and available for the public to access on the town's website. And be it further resolved that the town council hereby directs the Human Relations Commission, Inland Wetlands Agency, Conservation Commission, Patriotic Commission, Mass Transit and Highway Advisory Commission, there's commission missing, and Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission to video record their meetings utilizing available town equipment no later than April 1, 2023. Be it further resolved that the Town Council here additionally directs the Agricultural Commission, Economic Development Commission, Historic District Commission, and Public Building Commission to continue to audio record all meetings through September 30, 2023, and to begin recording their meetings utilizing the available town video equipment no later than October 1, 2023. Be it resolved, further resolved, that the Town Council hereby directs the above-named commissions to work with the town manager or designees to coordinate the posting of video recordings on the town's website for public viewing in a reasonable and timely manner, beginning no later than the above designated dates. And be it further resolved that the Town Council will make necessary technical preparations in order to ensure all above-named commissions are able to video record and have video recordings available for the public on the town website no later than the above designated dates. And be it further resolved that the implementation of regular video recordings of the commission's meetings being available on the town website for the public to access supports the objectives set out by the Open Government Initiative.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Questions, comments, discussion? Not seeing any? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thanks for Councilor Evans for working so hard on this. And Mr. Roberts, thank you. And is Jamie on that committee too? Councilor Campbell, thank you. And now we're on K, Councilor Kubaski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the fact I don't have to read the volumes that Councilor Evans just read. Item K, resolution approving of 11 refunds, the total of said refunds being $8,193.36. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves a refund of property taxes to 11 South Windsor taxpayers, the total of said refunds being $8,193.36, and is more fully described on attachment Exhibit A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there, thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yes, please.
Councilor Gamble.
Thank you. Why are they split in two?
I'm sorry?
Why are the two tax refund
Separated?
separated.
Mr. Maniscalco, please.
So I believe the tax office actually did it in two separate ones, with one being of 11, the other one being 5. Probably just the way that they were processed.
Okay.
In two different
So
batches.
they're the same, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same action, it's just
Yep.
probably the timing for the way they processed it.
Good. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you, Counselor Kowalski. Counselor Gamble.
Thank you. Resolution approving of 5 refunds, the total of said refunds being $2,664.82. Be it resolved that the town of that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves a refund of property taxes to 5 South Windsor taxpayers, the total of said refunds being $2,664.82, and as more fully described on attachment Exhibit B.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Questions, comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Letter M, Counselor Kozakowski, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution extending the probationary period of Clerk of the Council, Amanda Poma. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby extends the probationary period of Clerk of the Council, Amanda Poma. Said probationary period will end on June 26th, 2023, and will be followed by a review with the Personnel Committee. Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? Not hearing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Item 14, passage of ordinance. There is none. Item 15, public input for any matter. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the council on any matter? Public input for any other matter shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Good evening, Ms. Delnicki.
Good evening. As you all know, I was denied appointments to a number of boards and commissions for over a year now. At the March 21st, 2022 meeting, Councilor Evans stated that I did not meet the high standards to serve
Point
the
of
people
order.
of South Windsor.
Point of order.
I never said anything regarding Ms. Delnicki's level of high standard.
I requested a written copy.
Excuse me, it's a point of order, excuse me. And if you could please refrain from making that statement. It's not an accurate statement.
Yes, it is. I requested written copies of these standards several times over the past year and never received a written copy of them or even a response in writing from the town council. I filed an FOI request to the town of South Windsor for a copy of the high standards, and I would like to read the response from the town manager into the record dated March 1st, 2023. Dear Mrs. Delnicki, thank you for accepting this letter as a response to the FOI request you submitted to the town council as well as myself dated February 21st, 2023. I am unaware of any public document of the town council or the town that sets forth an official definition of high standards. As such, there are no documents responsive to your request. Best regards, Michael Maniscalco. Copy, Town Council, Vanessa Perry, Assistant Town Manager, Scott Roberts, Assistant Town Manager. Discrimination is wrong, and it is especially wrong when it comes to the town's chief elected body. The people of South Windsor deserve better. At the very least, the Town Council must atone for this by defining the criteria for the service on the board or a commission. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the council on any matter that's not on the agenda?
Good evening, Kevin Cooney, 15 Palmer Drive, honorably serving as your fire chief. I have some positive news and I want to give you a little update on our fire apparatus. The last 2 pieces of apparatus that you guys supported our purchase, as you know, those projects take multiple years. Those years are involving our apparatus committee along with town staff and primarily our finance director, Patty Perry. It's a very long, arduous process to do the specs, get everything out, award the contracts. And in the process, the specs get tweaked over the time. We have an estimated cost of what those apparatus would cost. And throughout the process of the multi-year process, when we get invoices for not only the apparatus, but the equipment, the radios, and miscellaneous equipment, we submit those invoices to Patty. She pays those invoices as part of the general lease. I'm very proud to say that recently the last invoice was submitted, so we're closing out that account. So all the expenditures that we expected, anticipated have been paid. And I will pass that part of it on to the town manager if you'd be so kind to pass it on to Patty tomorrow. But even further good news is that through the efforts of our apparatus committee, and I think I've bragged about them enough, but I'm not going to ever stop bragging about them, their diligence in that process, as with any other major projects, there's work orders, right, that change orders. Those change orders typically add more money to the projects. I'm very pleased to say that with our rescue truck, there were a few change orders that either reduced or remained the same, so there's no additional cost. And part of that was the installation of equipment and the labor to buy the equipment and install the equipment on the truck through the local vendor, Firematic. That estimated cost was about $20,000 based on what they told us when it was part of the bid. The project has been done now, and today I received a check for $5,720.98 made out to the town, because that was money that we did not spend. So through the entire project, we actually came under budget by a little over $5,000. So I could not be thankful more or less to the fire apparatus committee, their efforts, but to the town manager staff, both the assistant town managers and primarily Patty Perry for her efforts in supporting us, working with us, guiding us along the way. And due to all the efforts of everybody involved, granted, it's not millions of dollars that the fire truck costs, but it's $5,000 more than we expected. So
wow.
Here is the
good
check for that.
job. Good job.
Well,
Congratulations.
Your support for these projects is immense. Couldn't do it without the support of the town and without the support of the town council. And it's a great collaborative effort that we all work on together. And just want to say thank you for that and give you an update as to where we are. So we're done. We're still working on selling the old rescue truck, but we're getting closer to that, so we'll get a little bit more money back to the town.
Thank you, Chief, for coming here tonight to present that check to us. And if I could, Chief, thank the apparatus committee, because I know they work and they're geniuses. That's all I have to say. I am so impressed with that committee. It's unbelievable. Totally appreciate them and everything that they've done. And Councilor Paterno has something to say, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Chief Cooney, for all your work, and the apparatus committee, I know, does a great job. Am I hearing you right? You handed a check for $5,000 back to the town?
Yes.
Could we get a picture of that?
Never happens.
Well, doesn't always happen around.
To go along with the mayor, it really should be the apparatus committee that's really the ones taking the credit for this. I'm just their cheerleader. I'm really not the one taking any credit except to be their biggest cheerleader for all their efforts and what they do.
Right.
And, the projects are completed now, and we're 100% done until the next truck, which won't be right away.
We should frame that says return to the town. Thank you. Thank you. Please pass on our gratitude. Thank you. And moving on in the agenda now. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to council on anything not on the agenda? Not seeing any. We're going to be moving on to communications from the councilors. Any communications? Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I just want to give a shout out to the Public Works Department for the clearing of the roads. I think we've had a very late winter. And yes, I recognize that they're paid employees and so on and so forth, but they still have to get up, navigate in regards to the roads and the iciness. And I can only speak for my own driveway. It's very difficult to get up, but you know, the roads were spectacular. So I just wanted to send a shout out to them, especially in regards to the late winter. The second thing that I wanted to say, if I could, only because my children asked about it, was that the clocks go forward on March 13th. So the night of March 12th, I think that's correct, right? So for everybody, you know, make sure your clocks are set appropriately. I think that's next week, so.
We lose an hour's sleep.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, we will lose an hour. March
Oh, we
12th.
lose an hour? So what is it, spring forward, right?
March 12th.
Yeah, we lose an hour,
Yeah.
so kids, that's
Yeah.
what's happening. All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Go to bed earlier. There you go. Just say something. Put them down earlier. Can't lose their sleep. Councilor Evans, please.
To add on to what Deputy Mayor King said, also make sure to change your batteries in your smoke alarms, right? So when we change our clocks. I just wanted to, I'm not going to get into the Board of Ed budget, but I do just want to say that, like, I'm very impressed with the presentation and some of the things that we hear, and that increasing enrollment, how that is consistently a factor and a driving force. I know in my neighborhood personally, every single time a house sells, every time a family with children who have grown out of the school system sells, a family is moving in. So I think what I'd like to ask for at our next meeting is I think we need to be creative and maybe look at ways to try to keep our retired folk and our seniors in their homes to help to encourage other members of the community to stay and be able to stay. As much as we love our families and in town, I think we need to consider how we can ease some of the burden on our seniors and look how we might impact them through their taxes. So that would be my ask. And one of the ways I'm hoping that we can kind of help the Board of Ed to ease some of that enrollment piece. So, thank you.
You know, some of our seniors don't like to cut the grass or shovel the snow anymore, you know. I'm kidding. So we move into places where we can pay a fee for someone to do that. But anyways, now we're moving on. Executive session, oh, I'm sorry, Council Paterno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just thank you, Deputy Mayor King, for mentioning the clocks being changed on Sunday night. So I just want to make sure that people are reminded that on Monday night, I don't want you to be late for this program. It's 7 o'clock. You're going to change your clocks on Sunday. So this starts at 7 o'clock on Monday on the energy program. So please come and learn how to save money. Thank you.
Oh, my. This is what I have to put up with. I love you guys. Executive session, we have none. That's item 17. Item 18 is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn, please? Is there a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Be well, South Windsor.